Hi and welcome to Control Alt Delete Reboot Your Life. We're starting with the topic of marriage. And I have Julia Riedel here, and she fulfills a number of roles here at Redeemer. She runs our women's ministries, our special events. But her with her husband Ron, also you do a great deal of premarital counseling for us as well. So you've worked with a lot of couples. We have an interesting text here from Ephesians chapter 5, one that I think causes a lot of trouble at times in our society today, as people say, wait a minute, what does it mean to submit? So maybe let's look at that first. For our culture today, what do you think that looks like?
To submit?
Yeah.
All right, well that is a big word out there, especially for women sometimes. What does submission look like? For me, it's not just laying down as a foot mat for Ron just to run over. That certainly is not what that means to me, nor to my relationship with my husband Ron.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I'm a slave. It
Right.
just means that I'm going to willingly submit to his headship in our marriage. And kind of like what Jesus does, not kind of, what he does do, what Jesus does, as the head of the church. And
Right.
so I can certainly, as I look to Ron, I can remember that I looked to Jesus, much more so as the head, the focus point, where I want to put my security and my love, my trust, and my faith.
Yeah.
And to know that Ron desires to lay down his life for me. That
Right.
the buck kind of stops there with Ron.
That's the other side of it, right?
Yeah.
That to the husbands in verse 25, it doesn't say husbands rule your wives. Right. It says love your wives.
Exactly.
As Christ loved the church.
Right.
And what did he do for the church?
Exactly. And what Jesus did was lay down his life.
Yeah.
And Ron, when we talk with our pre-married couples, Ron, says it's not just, if there was your house is on fire, yes, the husband would go and, rescue the family, or if someone came into the house like a burglar, the husband hopefully would, wake up and stand there and be protected. But it's like for Ron to put his size 14 shoes away in the closet instead of leaving them in the living room and me tripping over them, or even though he wants to leave them there for the next day. It's just the little things that husbands can do to lay down their lives, not just the big things, but the everyday things. And
nice perspective.
Yeah, it is. And for me to honor him and respect him as my husband, and to willingly let him do that.
Yeah, great.
To give him that permissions, I guess, so to speak.
Okay. So along with putting shoes away,
Yeah.
what are some more keys to lifelong love?
Gosh, I definitely, there's a book out called Love and Respect, and that really spoke to me a few years ago and really changed my marriage and my perspective of, especially for me to respect my husband. We have the love and respect naturally, but for me to really understand what does that mean as Ron's wife, to respect him in how I respond and how I think about him, to respect him for not what he does, but for who he is as God's gift to me. And so that just changed our marriage from a good one to a much better one. Certainly trust is a part of a lifelong key. I trust that when Ron says he's going to lock the doors at night, I trust that they're done and I don't have to go back and recheck. Now, certainly, does that resonate with you, Scott?
Yeah, we've had that discussion.
Yeah. I'm sure we're not the only couples or whatever. So having humor is huge. That just softens life in general, is to have that humor, laughing together. And I think nothing is sexier than laughing together with your spouse.
There you go.
It's fun to do. And also understanding that Ron, that your spouse has your best interests at heart.
Right.
Because you're together as a team. You're to be each other's cheerleaders, and to just to say, you know what, we're in this together, and for a lifelong journey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, those are great keys, especially helpful to those couples you're working with that are just getting started in
Absolutely.
life. But what would it look like for those couples that have been married maybe a long time? What would it look like for them to reboot, following our theme? What would it look like for them to reboot their marriage?
Not certainly booting someone out of the house. No,
No.
I don't do that one. But for rebooting, I think sometimes you just have to stop and take a look at where you are in your relationship, and look back on why did you find that person attractive in the first place? What attracted you about that person? What are the values? What are the interests? Remembering why you fell in love. And talking about that, celebrating those memories and rekindling that fire and that passion that you once had. To intentionally, I think it's important for couples to carve out that time together, to go on dates, even though it doesn't have to be expensive. It could be going out for a cup of coffee, maybe getting your favorite bottle of wine and bringing it back and turning off all things that are plugged in and just having that time together. That's so important to talk about what is important for one another, and to remember that Christ is your third strand in your marriage. And that's the key that holds those marriages together, and to reboot and to refocus, because you need to celebrate that. Satan is really trying to tear those marriages apart, and we need to put that protection and the hedge of protection around it.
Awesome.
And just to remember that God's in favor of marriage.
Amen.
For life.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. So, focus on each other, focus on Christ, and enjoy your discussion.